Good evening and welcome to Northbeat. I'm Lainey Lambrink. We begin tonight in Whitehorse, where disability rights advocates are claiming a win. For weeks now, they've been pushing City Hall to do better when it comes to making the downtown more accessible, especially in the winter. Advocates say snow and ice on streets and sidewalks makes it hard to get around, and they want the city to make changes to how it manages the mess left behind by winter weather. Last night, a step in that direction. Cheryl Kawaja reports.
For the past 2 months, week after week, accessibility advocates have come to City Hall pleading for better service. Snow and ice removal.
Good to see you. All right, here we go.
Arguing it's about equity, access for all, and human dignity.
Okay, I'm gonna call the guy who's gonna fix it really quickly.
But even before the council meeting can begin on the second floor, a problem. The glitch with the elevator is just another example of the many daily obstacles, say these advocates. Eventually, everyone does get upstairs. And in chamber, delegates once again do all they can to help mayor and council understand their struggle. After weeks of this, a new motion.
That the provisional 2024 operating budget be amended by allocating an additional $220,000 to provide additional resources to address accessibility concerns.
That's snow and ice removal and enforcement, targeting things like para-ramps, accessible parking stalls on the street, and sidewalks in the downtown core. Plus $30,000 to study how it goes this winter.
Then all in favor of the motion as amended. That passes unanimously. Thank you.
After weeks of lobbying, relief and hope for some.
Just to see something a step forward, I was happy to see, but the next step is to actually see it in action. And so I'm just kind of going to be hoping and waiting to see.
But not everyone thinks it goes far enough.
This is my 5th presentation to Mayor and Council over the last 6-7 weeks, and I feel like they're still nickel and diming our constitutional right, which is equitable access to community programs and services.
Some advocates say they want to see the city adopt a more comprehensive and permanent approach to snow and ice removal for people with disabilities. Meanwhile, the city says it could take a number of weeks to turn this new money into action. That means for people with mobility challenges, it might be the new year before they notice a difference on the streets of Whitehorse. Cheryl Kawaja, CBC News, Whitehorse.
In Toledo, Northwest Territories, access to food is weighing heavily on people's minds. Shelves in the grocery stores are empty. What is there is expensive, and that's creating a fresh sense of urgency for an all-season road. Luke Carroll has more.
I'm in Toledo, along the banks of the Mackenzie River, a river that serves as a lifeline to the Sawtooth community. And residents say they're feeling the pinch from the low water levels that led to reduced barges this summer.
It's really hard to keep money because you have to keep buying groceries and it costs a lot. So.
Oh, shelves are empty and the cost has gone right up.
For sure, it definitely stops people from wanting to get the things that they need, especially those that don't travel or have the opportunity to leave as much. It's definitely a lot harder to fill your cupboards, your shelves, your fridge. It's a challenge right now.
Costs are up and shelves are bare. This is what it looks like at Toledo's northern store. Community members tell me they've never seen them this empty before. CBC News reached out to the northern store and its parent company to discuss the high prices and the bare shelves, but they haven't responded. Dana Bird's family runs Wright's convenience store in Toledo, and she says the lack of shipments is having a real effect.
Well, it's forced us we couldn't get enough stock this year. We had to raise our prices a bit because we're shipping in a lot of our stock.
But the dry conditions from this summer aren't just affecting the food at the store. It's also affecting the food from the land. Gordon Yakalaya is an elder in Toledo who says hunting and fishing was disrupted by the shallow river. He says this year there were sandbars that have never been there before.
Like I said, you could see moose on the side of walk on it, but you cannot stop on the shore. You cannot get to it. So unless you want to pack a long ways, but I mean, there are people that never used to do that, huh?
Now, the winter road is the only possible relief from these prices. It can get food in, but also let people drive out. But with the warmer than average temperatures and little snow, some fear that might be delayed.
So that's why I guess we're wishing for more snow. But as long as we don't have no snow, I don't know we're going to have a winter road.
The Department of Infrastructure says in a statement it can't predict the opening date, as it's dependent on several factors. It's usually open before Christmas. The situation has both residents and leadership calling for the Mackenzie Valley Highway to be built.
Somebody won't take the whole thing.
The topic of the bridge and highway was a hot topic for Toledo elders during a weekly cribbage game.
Well, because of the low water and everything, we need highway.
The next phase of that project was supposed to start this year with the construction of a bridge across Great Bear River near Toledo, but it's been delayed. The bridge isn't expected to be completed until 2029. To many in Toledo, with the high cost of living, that's too far away.
Yeah, but it's pretty low since summer.
The NWT MP, Michael McLeod, says he's raised the issue of food shortages with his colleagues in Ottawa and understands the immediate need for a road, but says the territorial government will need to make it a priority in order to make it a reality sooner. Luke Carroll, CBC News, Toledo.
It's been an unusual year weather-wise across the north, from record high temperatures and low water levels in the summer to now a lack of ice. There is still open water at Pond Inlet, Nunavut, because winds keep pushing the sea ice away from the community. In other communities like Pangnartu, the warm weather means hunters can't get to their hunting grounds safely. That has some elders warning people to pay more attention.
The weather here in the north is extremely different now. Because of climate change, the weather does not show the same patterns as it used to, and now we are dealing with the unexpected, and many storms hit us unpredictably.
Kapik was born on the land at a traditional camp and grew up observing the weather. He remembers when the sea ice started to freeze up by early October. According to Environment and Climate Change Canada, 2023 was the warmest fall on record for a number of communities across the north. As the planet's climate changes, experts say we can expect to see more extreme weather. Agreeing on how to slow down and mitigate that change is something delegates have been working on at the UN Climate Conference in Dubai. But tensions are high. Negotiators are trying to bridge a gap between oil producers and others who want the final message from the conference to call for the phasing out of fossil fuels. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has the latest.
It has been a long day of negotiations to arrive at a new draft text of this agreement at COP28.
What do we want? Phase out! If we don't get it, shut it down!
Meanwhile, we saw a large protest of NGOs and climate activists trying to pressure the negotiators to come to grips with this idea of fossil fuels and try to strengthen the language in that text. We also spoke to two young women who'd been in that protest. One of them, a 26-year-old from Colombia, told us about her first experience at a COP.
This whole thing is just us shouting to each other and not getting real action happening, so we can build off of that and create real solutions.
Canada's Climate Minister Stephen Guilbeault is leaving this evening to go back to Canada, but he has met with the presidency, as have the leads of all the delegations this evening. He is expecting we'll see a draft text sometime tonight or in the early hours of the morning, and that it may be the last one before a vote sometime likely on Wednesday. Minister Guilbeault was asked about the fossil fuel issue, whether that issue had been addressed, whether the controversy, disappointment, and criticism of last evening had any effect. He said it had. He hadn't seen the text, but the countries which were pushing back against any mention of fossil fuels, he said, were listening. Have a listen.
I think they listened. and the message they heard loud and clear last night from more than 70 different interventions is that what the text that was presented to us did not go far enough when it comes to sending the world a signal that we need to reduce our dependencies on fossil fuels. And there's all sorts of ways you can phrase it and you can frame it. The text didn't go far enough when it comes to finance to help the global south fight climate change.
The process from now is that new text will be examined, looked at, pored over by the delegations, and if it is accepted or minor changes, it will go to a plenary meeting, a meeting of all the delegations here to be voted on sometime likely within the next 12 to 18 hours. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Dubai.
As you just heard there, COP28 attendees are starting to make their way home, including members of the NWT's delegation. The territory's Assistant Deputy Minister of Climate Change made it back to Yellowknife over the weekend. He spoke to me yesterday about why the trip was important.
The reason we go to COP is because it's the world's biggest conference on climate change, and it's important for the NWT to be represented and heard there. There's kind of three main areas that we're looking to make sure that we hit on. One is kind of meeting with other jurisdictions, including Canada, but other provinces, and even with other countries to share best practices. Also, in the case of Canada, like communicating the NWT's needs in terms of funding and what's happening with respect to climate change. The second one is more around like COP as a conference, and you can learn a lot about the current state of knowledge and practices related to climate change, both nationally and internationally. And what the team does when it goes there is have an eye on how we could apply some of the things that are being done in other countries or other places in the NWT, or how some new policies that are being created might affect the NWT. The third thing that we're really looking for when we go to these conferences is kind of what's the current state of climate change negotiations. And there is an ability as a part of the Canada delegation to influence what those are.
We heard yesterday from another NWT delegate. Ramona Pearson struggled to find climate solutions that work for remote communities. Cannigan recognizes the ideas presented at COP don't always apply to the NWT. He says the principles behind those ideas can help the territory figure out a way forward. Part of the federal government's plan to curb carbon emissions in Canada is the carbon tax. But the new premier of the NWT says it doesn't work. RJ Simpson wants a carbon tax exemption for the whole territory. When asked about how the federal government responds to that, the Minister of Northern Affairs deflected the question.
We continue to engage with the North, with the new premier. I congratulate him on his victory. On his election, and we'll engage with the North. Thank you.
The Prime Minister has said the purpose of a carbon tax is to convince people to make changes, and the Premier is saying that if the cost convinced people to change what they were doing, they would have done that in the Northwest Territories a long time ago.
Listen, we'll continue to engage with the Premier. We will meet with him regularly, and we'll talk about the issues. Certainly affordability is an important issue, and we're going to meet with him to make sure that we continue to deliver.
The tax adds about 10% to the cost of fuel, including home heating fuel. Residents get a quarterly payment to offset some of that. The territorial government used to rebate the tax on heating fuel when it was purchased, but the federal government says that's no longer allowed. People in Whitehorse hoping to take advantage of the territory's renewable energy rebate program are going to have to wait. The Yukon government is pausing the project, saying its impact on the electricity grid needs to be studied. Officials say temporarily pausing the program in the capital will give them time to make sure Yukoners don't see disruptions in service. Solvist Inc. accounts for 95% of all solar installations in the north. The company's CEO says he wasn't informed of the pause and was left in the dark.
Had we been consulted, those changes could have been implemented without a pause to the program. And moreover, we have a number of ideas related to incorporating batteries and so on into the program that could significantly enhance the value not only to Yukon households, but also to the utility, providing further grid storage and grid frequency support.
Power says his company has 70 full-time employees. He believes people who choose to use solar power shouldn't be punished. The government says the study and pause are expected to be done by the end of May. NW Premier R.J. Simpson has announced his cabinet ministers' portfolios, and a big one rests with him. On top of being Premier, Government House Leader, and Minister of Executive and Indigenous Affairs, Simpson will also act as the Minister of Justice. That was one of his roles in the last Assembly. Caroline Wozniak stays as Minister of Finance. She will also oversee the Department of Infrastructure and the Power Corporation. Caitlin Cleveland will helm Education, Culture and Employment, along with Industry, Tourism and Investment. Lisa Semler, a nurse, takes over the Department of Health and Social Services. Lucy Capitana is responsible for Housing NWT and the Status of Women. Jay McDonald, who used to work in forest management with the GNWT, will be the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, and Vince McKay will oversee Municipal and Community Affairs and the Workers' Safety Compensation Commission, as well as the Public Utilities Board. In Nunavut, the results are in for the 2023 Kivalliq Inuit Association election. Kunu Tatuini has been re-elected as president, and Patrick Taguna was elected as vice president. The community directors for Nauyat, Rankin Inlet, and Whale Cove are Johnny Tagonak, Nelly Kusugak, and Guy Inuapik.
We carry a world of information in our pockets because we want to know. Breaking news that shapes your world.
All right.
Reporting from the scene onto your screens.
It goes on like this, and on and on and on and on.
It's news you can trust, delivered when you want, where you want. On Canada's News app. Download the free CBC News app.
How can any of this be fair?
Now you might think, hey, we just need more doctors, but that's not really it.
A Russian scheme here shows you where it starts, where it ends.
Were you really willing to risk that job? Yes.
At Thunder Bay's favorite festival, Wake the Giant.
Ta-da! There it is.
That same woman from the SEC keeps calling. Can I give her your number?
No.
Michael Lazaridis, want to come and answer some questions?
Why is the SEC looking at us? I'm sure it's nothing. Yeah.
I'm just wondering how you convinced all these engineers from around the world to come all the way to Canada. Do you know what the sentence is for multi-million-dollar stock fraud?
It doesn't matter how full of people your house is as long as it's full of love. Now, today is not about the future. It's not about the past. It's about this moment.
You can't go halfway with Swan Lake.
There's a lot of stress.
I love ballet, and sometimes it feels like it doesn't love me back.
The stakes become very high.
We're just trying to survive right now.
Some people rise and some people don't.
We got a snake on the plane.
What? Prepare for emergency landing.
Hang on, guys.
Alex likes being safe. Maybe you just haven't been taking the right risks. You might find you like dancing with danger.
The Great Canadian Baking Show is back.
And the winner is...
Alan, no, it's too soon for that.
How about now?
Give me that.
Okay, yeah, sure.
Concern from Nunavut's Information and Privacy Commission about Iqaluit's mail system. He's worried an overhaul of the system has created privacy risks. In October, Canada Post changed the address system for the city's 8,000 people, but there's been a lot of confusion and some people aren't getting their mail. The CBC's Nick Murray reports.
Nunavut's Information and Privacy Commissioner Graham Steele wrote to 3 Nunavut departments almost 2 weeks ago. In his letters, he says there appears to be more mail going missing or ending up in the wrong hands. Steele also says he's worried about a privacy risk from the change of addresses. He emailed his letters to the Departments of Finance, Family Services, and Human Resources.
So I wrote to 3 departments that I know are sending fair volumes of sensitive mail to say, what do you think the risk is? And if you think there's a risk, what are you doing about it? This addressing change probably represents a substantial risk of mail, sensitive mail, not getting to the right person or actually getting to the hands of the wrong people. And I need the GN departments sending that mail to take a hard look at what's going on.
Steele says he hasn't received any complaints regarding privacy breaches from the new post office changes and that this was a proactive probe. The government has until January 17th to respond. In a statement to CBC News, a GN spokesperson said they're aware of the concerns and are determining which programs and services are affected by Iqaluit's new mailing system. Canada Post did not respond to CBC's offer to comment on Steele's concerns. Nick Murray, CBC News, Iqaluit.
It's been a slow start for the Northwest Territories Historical Case Unit. The dedicated unit, announced in 2018, investigates cold case files in the Northwest Territories, and it has struggled to get fully staffed. One case the unit will most likely be investigating is that of Angela Meyer. Meyer was 22 years old in November 2010 when she went missing in Yellowknife. At the time, Meyer was struggling with schizophrenia and was on a weekend pass from the psychiatric ward at Stanton Territorial Hospital. Search teams with dogs looked by ground and air, but Meyer was never found. Her mom, Kathy, says the cold case unit is a positive step forward, but she wishes they would have more contact with families.
To let them know how it would work or what sort of expertise they think they have, because obviously we don't as regular people. And if it's something that they can help us understand, we do need to keep looking. We want to know where she is. And it's hard to say dead or alive, but that's always on the back of my mind anyway. Oh. It's hard.
The unit now consists of 2 officers and support staff. They're currently focusing on digitizing documentation and old tapes, adding investigators' past work to a searchable database, and familiarizing themselves with advancements in DNA technology. There are currently 80 cold cases in the NWT, 9 more than when the unit was first created. On the heels of recent drug busts in Inuvik, NWT, and 5 suspected overdose deaths in Fort McPherson, the territorial government is handing out naloxone kits in those communities. They're also teaching people how to use them. This workshop was held in Inuvik last week. Experts say the kits can save lives.
So it might even be like you're sitting at home, you're drinking your tea, you're reading your book, and someone knocks on your door asking for help. It's so great when you can be a support to your community, even in those moments when you're not, when you're just doing your own thing.
Participants were also trained to identify signs of an overdose. That includes dilated pupils and being unresponsive to sound and touch. Around 300 kits were also distributed to health centers and hospitals in both communities. Getting more people with disabilities into Nunavut's workforce. That's the goal of a partnership between the Nunavumi Disabilities Makanatsuaktit Society and the Canadian Association for Supported Employment. They're offering free mentorships. It gives potential employees a way to connect and build relationships with local employers and learn more about the career they're interested in.
And for many people with disabilities, that can be quite challenging. Especially when there is accommodations that are needed or barriers that they experience. So just finding ways to have that conversation so that employers know that it's not as difficult as it's made out to be, and that Nunavummiut with disabilities can apply to these jobs knowing that they will be included when they get there.
And that is Northbeat for tonight. We love to show you Christmas light displays, so that is how we are going to end the show again tonight. The ones that are coming up are displays seen around Yellowknife. Thanks for watching. I'm Lainey Lambrink. Have a good night.
I was a grade 9.
Mr. Critch, you need glasses. Glasses? No, I just think the chalk is just a little soft.
One of these days we're gonna have to grow up, but today is not that day.
I don't want us to get older either.
Son of a Critch. Watch free on CBC Gem.
The Great Canadian Baking Show is back.
It's time to get whisked away into a magical 10.
Whisked away? I see what you did there. It has begun.
Alan, please don't start with a
Donut.
pun competition.
I got my eyes on the pies.
Our customers could shop at any big box store, but they choose to shop at One More Time. Why?
Because our stuff is used and cheap.
We do accept baseball bats, but what is this?
It's about to get weird in here, isn't it?
Yes.
We are calling it iPhone.
Why would anybody want a phone without a keyboard?
Watch CBC News Explore 24 hours a day for free.